In Washington state, Seattle agrees will pay $3.5 million to a black woman's family who police officers shot to settle a wrongful death suit. Charleena Lyles, a mother of 4, was fatally shot by 2 Seattle police officers in June 2017. 2 Seattle police officers responded to Lyles' apartment after calling 911 to report a burglary. Evidence at the scene pointed to a staged burglary, and according to the officers, she suddenly attacked them. I can't find it. There we go, with 1 or 2 knives, and they fatally shot her in the cramped confines of her kitchen. The lawsuit, though, claims the officers did not act reasonably because they failed to use non-lethal force to disarm or subdue her. Under police policy, Seattle police officers are required to carry tasers, but one of the officers did not have his on the day of the incident. He left it in his locker because the battery died. Yeah, the old my battery died. Going to the panel, we're going to keep seeing these over and over again, Dr. Carr, until there are direct consequences. I'm going to sound like Roland Martin now. Until there are direct consequences to these officers. If you don't have your body cam on and we can't see part of what happened in your officer-involved shooting, there has to be a consequence. If you're supposed to be carrying a taser and we're saying it's in the locker because of a dead battery and now there's a dead woman because of a dead battery, there has to be a consequence, doesn't there?
Well, I mean, you tell the rest of us, sis, since you know about this better than most of us, having waged war in these courtrooms. At the end of the day, when we think about what a reasonableness standard is, reasonable use of force, reasonable action in the face of something like a traffic stop, or you name the range, we can't be in each other's heads, but we should be able to establish a basic level of decent human contact. So, I mean, listening to you and Sister Georgia talk there, I was monitoring some of the jury selection through another attorney there from Minneapolis, Angie Porter, and she noted with Juror 55, who was the last of the 12 jurors to be seated today, a white man, a Navy vet, who said he has been tased before. I think that, and I'll use what Attorney Porter said. He might be a stealth juror on that bench in the jury box because he is a white man. He is a United States military veteran, but he has been tased, and he will understand that a police officer like Kim Porter, who reached and yelled taser, 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 and then discharged her weapon, he's not going to buy that she mistakenly pulled the gun instead of the taser because she was a veteran. And so in Seattle, we see something similar. This guy is on paid, protected, cleared leave for basically hunting. As we heard from Charleena Lyles' cousin, Katherine Johnson, who thanked the people for being in the streets to protest, this isn't enough. You've got to punish these people. Settlements aren't enough. Her own son said, the $3 million, okay, but that doesn't bring my mom back. We've got to attack this reasonableness standard, and you'd have to tell the rest of us, quite frankly, sis, how do you get into a jury box or the mind of a judge and extract out that notion that somehow it is reasonable to kill somebody? I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
Right. Well, I mean, but Greg, you're not saying that there aren't any circumstances in which deadly force is necessary?
I'm saying anytime we live in a country where you can strike jurors, and there was a Batson challenge today for a young Asian American potential juror who was a law student. And we both know that law students typically don't get on juries, but the Batson challenge was based on her race. And there are apparently 2 other Asian Americans who are on the jury, so that first prong wasn't satisfied. But what I am saying is that you shouldn't answer a jury questionnaire and be struck from a jury for cause simply because you said that you attended a protest against police brutality, or you said something like, I think there are situations where the police are wrong. How does that become prejudicial, except in a society where the police cannot be wrong, as almost as a matter of law? And I think that is what we have to address. I'm not saying it's never warranted, of course not, but I'm saying that the presumption is when they shoot that it's a good shoot. And the rebut to that presumption is so almost astronomically impossible a standard to meet that it creates the situation where the police are converted into hunters. And I don't know how we deal with that as a matter of the legal universe, not case by case examples, but the structural notion of policing in this country.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are going to have to be some codified changes in the law for us to get any real progress on that. You are absolutely right. A settlement does not do anything to change what happens to the next person who's in line to be shot and killed by a police officer. It provides money for a mother who can't bring a child back. And that is the extent of what it does, because most times now the squeeze that it puts on the city does not make them make the types of changes. There have to be equitable remedies, not just financial remedies, in order for the city to understand that the way that they do business has to change. Faraji, your thoughts?
You know, it's interesting because I remember hearing your attorney Ben Crump say something that I think will forever stick out in my mind. He made the point that he said that the work that he does, which is, you know, making sure that the families are compensated when they have a loved one that is lost in the hands of by police. He said that we want to make it so expensive for them to kill us that they will think twice. That's why he always go for the large settlements. That's why he's always trying to hit the cities where these incidents occur, hit them hard in the pockets, because he's saying, if you're going to keep killing us, then we're going to keep killing your pockets. And I think that's an interesting strategy. But I think that also, though, you know, based upon the conversation you just had with Dr. Carr, I think that it's also important that in this case of Sister Charleena Lyles, that we have a discussion about mental health, that we really do have something there where you know, a mental health you know, I can't think of the word, but there has to be some additional training of some sort where police are just take a quick moment and pause. And I know that the police said in this particular case that the Sister Charleena had 1 or 2 knives and all of those things. But you got to take a quick pause before you just jump into action and start shooting and killing people. But it does not erase the fact that, yes, okay, this family got $3.5 million, and it might hit the department a little bit, but we have to find the balance between hitting them, killing them in their pockets, but also getting verifiable justice. And Monique, by you being the attorney that you are, you know it. Like if a police officer doesn't have their body cam on, if a police officer makes those certain type of decisions, rash decisions in a short period of time, there has to be consequences for that. And I think that the larger conversation about making sure that police officers are held accountable, not just from a city or civil servant perspective, but also held accountable personally, that conversation needs to move forward. Because then, okay, let's combine what Ben Crump said and what's happening right now. If we're going to hit the departments in the pockets, maybe we need to hit these officers in their personal assets. And then they'll think twice, because they might lose their home. They might lose their car. Their children may not be able to go to college. Something has to be disrupted on that end in order for us to start seeing some real justice, because all we're getting is just disruption on our end, and the scales of justice are already in balance.
You know what, Reese? There was this thing, because I hear Faraji, I hear Dr. Gregg, and Faraji's talking without naming it about qualified immunity and how we need to get rid of it so that there's some personal liability for the officers. I hear Dr. Gregg and Faraji saying that there needs to be consequences and accountability for these officers that go beyond what we can do by hitting them in their pockets. And I'm saying that we need codified laws. You know, Reese, there was this piece of legislation. It was called the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. And amazingly, it had all of these provisions and more in it. Whatever happened to that?
Well, you know, you're absolutely right, Monique. What happened? I hear more people talk about it now than when last year when people were focused on the kente cloth and the kneeling and making a mockery out of it, when there was momentum or people were out in the streets and we really probably could have pushed for what we were trying to get to. Maybe we wouldn't have gotten 100% of the provisions, but there was some momentum and a little bit of an appetite there, even from Trump. I'm not giving him credit, but even from Trump to get something done. And that momentum was squandered. And now we see Black Lives Matter actually has lower approval ratings than it did before the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery protests, the so-called racial reckoning that we have now. We have a racial reversal back to where we were before the reckoning. And so, unfortunately, you know, this is going to have to be fought at the local level, at the state level, because I don't think we're going to make any progress at the federal level for that. But the thing that just trips me out, we've talked about multiple stories of Black people being killed by the police in the same week where we had a mass shooter apprehended alive. He has a mugshot. He's not a hashtag. He doesn't have a body bag. His family's not planning a funeral. They at trial court looking for his arraignment. How is it that you can bring home, apprehend mass shooters, white men who are highly weaponed, who have automatic rifles, who have just killed and shot multiple people, but a woman who calls for help because Charleena Lyles called for help for a burglary, and she was the one who ended up dead. Was it one knife or was it two knives? You shooting and you don't even know how many wives that you have, how many knives a person has. The police expect perfection from people seeking their help, the people they're supposed to preserve and protect, but they get all the latitude. The law gives them all the latitude to make mistakes. Oh, well, you know, he thought it was necessary, thought it was reasonable. He thought he was in fear. There's no margin for the people on the other side of that police gun. And that is what we have to change, because the police should be held to a higher standard than a person who maybe they have mental issues or whatever the situation they're going with. What they are in the commission of committing a crime, if they do not pose a lethal danger to you, you should have a higher standard than what the police are being held to. That is the biggest problem that we're having with the way that police are operating. They have all the latitude, the victims do not.
All right, folks, back to our road mark unfiltered video in just one moment.
Are the stars out tonight?
Alexa, play our favorite song again.
Okay.
I only have eyes for you.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?